Where is your SLA on that? There was a lot of backlash around this, that developer shouldn't have pulled that package from NPM, or whether NPM should have allowed that package to be deleted. No, the fault, the stupid developers, one person called it, was us for giving our dependencies to others. We don't think about these things. We just say, it's free, it's awesome, let's use it. And it's a VC-backed service, yes, but what happens when that VC wants to cash in? Because at some point, VCs do want to cash in. And what do they get, right? Moral of the story, you are responsible for your own dependencies. You are responsible for your own things. Nothing is free, absolutely nothing. Rethink was a database that I don't know some of you have used, shut down. It got a lot of VC rounds. Here's an application I used to use on the Android. It was called Everything Me. It was fantastic. 35 million in 3 rounds, 15 million users. It shut down. Why? Because it's false. Users is not revenue. If you can't create a business model around your users, it won't matter eventually. It doesn't matter how many users you have. Can someone give me an example of something in the world with a lot of users that they're struggling to find still a profitable model? Anyone, anything, please. What? Twitter, there you go. Have you heard of Twitter? Right. And of course, the best part is not only free services and free software, we also have free information, right? This is elmundo.es, which is a Spanish newspaper. Of course, this is not what El Mundo looks like when you go to it. This is with an ad blocker. This is not what El Mundo looks like when you go to it. This is what it looks like when you go to it, right? It's in Spain. Spain realized that they can put advertising on newspapers, so they provide 90% advertising, 10% news. And there's another one. This is, well, The Independent. They wanted to throw a party. So, of course, we don't use it like that. My family uses these sites like this. We don't. We hate ads. They're horrible. They're disgusting things. So we use ad blockers. Because those are good things, right? And then what do newspapers do? They make it even harder for us. They now put blockers that block our ad blockers. Right? And they say, you're using an ad blocker, you shouldn't be doing that. Others kind of say, no, you've got 5 free articles, you've done your time, it's over, right? This is the Telegraph. It's okay because you really can't read more than 5 articles on the Telegraph anyway. Some are nicer. Guardian is like, you know, for less than what you pay for Starbucks, you could help support us in terms of journalism. How many of you pay for online newspapers? How many of you use ad blockers? There you go. Right? So, in fact, 2 out of 3 millennials now use an ad blocker. So you know what AdBlock did? It said, I'm going to sell ads. AdBlock Plus now sells ads. It's so beautiful. The irony in that is so beautiful, is it not? But you're not paying, of course you're not, but you are paying because we're degrading the quality of information. And we're seeing that more and more daily, right? And we're blurring the line between news and content marketing. Right? You're all familiar with content marketing. At JetBrains, we do content marketing. We sell tools. So we create articles around software development and all of these things in a hope that one day eventually you'll come across one of our articles and say, these people know what they're talking about, let me purchase their products. Yeah, it doesn't really happen, but it looks cool. It sounds great. Okay? Now, news sites also use content marketing. This is very typical site. You can see where the advertising is, right? It's very clear in your face, you know where the advertising is. In this site, it starts to get a little bit blurry because you actually don't know if this is like investigative reporting or is it something that someone has pushed there. It's actually content marketing, except they've come up with a better name. They call it native advertising, right? Because they're blurring the line between what is real reporting, what is real journalism, and what is someone paid me to put their article on my news site. And now you get a lot of the news from Facebook, and Facebook said, well, we're going to stop from ad blockers using Facebook. But you know, the best thing you can do with Facebook is stop using Facebook, but that's another matter. But you say in a world of social media, traditional media is becoming irrelevant. It is. Like nowadays with Twitter, with Facebook, with all of these other networks, it's becoming irrelevant to go to even news sites as such, right? We get our news on Twitter instantly. And social media has given us all a voice. Everyone now has a voice, and news is crowdsourced. And now we've created these different types of communities, right? We have Facebook, we have Snapchat, we have Twitter, there's Google+. I don't know if anyone's on there yet, but it's still there. But what we've actually created is an isolation. We've created different walled gardens, right? In that we're all in our little garden with our little people listening to our little news that's crowdsourced by those around us. And of course, where does that news come from? Well, it comes from our people, our circles. So recently, there was some elections in the US. I don't know if you've heard of them. And they were saying that, you know, some blog posts and some news articles and some information that people are sharing had been kind of censored. And Facebook workers were kind of like saying that, you know, this article is about Republicans shouldn't appear, and they were trying to, you know, persuade people to vote one way or another. And this wasn't even about politics. So Mark Zuckerberg came out with a response in it, which he says that, you know, have the power to share their thoughts and experiences. That's what makes social media unique. We are one global community when everyone can share anything, from a loving photo of a mother and her baby to intellectual analysis of political events. These were words by Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook photo of a man cradling sick son in shower repeatedly removed by social network. Now remember, it's okay for mothers, but apparently not for fathers. But it's not okay for mothers in certain cases either, because if they're breastfeeding, that's seen as pornography by someone at Facebook, and it's also banned. Question is, we heard about these stories. The other question is, which stories don't we hear about that are not being shown to us? This picture, very famous picture, was deleted from Facebook. And a Norwegian paper, I believe, published about this, and then they put the picture back. They said it was a misunderstanding. How many times are things being removed from our little walled gardens that we're not aware about? So they said, let's get rid of the humans, we'll put in artificial intelligence to solve this. We know how that went because they fired that issue as well. And then these social networks introduce things to us. They introduce timelines and moments. How many of you are on Twitter? How many of you look at moments? Right? It's news that is interesting to you. Right? They got rid of the chronological time order of tweets, and they said, we're going to push things that we believe are interesting to you. So we're going to give you information that matters the most. It's about your needs, showing what you care about first. And I ask, who knows what I care about first? Who is it? Is it a person? Or is it a computer algorithm? What is it? And what is it basing these decisions on? And we'll get to that in a little bit. And then, of course, we've got this other thing that's been coming up, which is fake news, which has always been around. The difference is that now we're aware of more things, right? Fake news has always been around. And, you know, BBC was talking about, you know, the rise and rise of fake news. Nowadays, anything that you don't agree with, you can just call fake news. But, you know, there's a rise and rise of fake news. So Google said, we're going to introduce fact-checking feature. Who at Google is going to introduce this? What's behind it? Based on what? So now there is an omnipresent company that is going to decide for me what is fake and what is not. That will make my life easier, because then everything I read must be true. And I'll trust this company. And I can say Facebook, I can say Google, I can say anyone. It doesn't matter. Someone is doing it for me. Where is our judgment balance actually? See, here's a little thing that happens quite often. And I've seen this in my circle of friends, right? I see a tweet come out. Someone has done something awful, right? You see a tweet. Blah, 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 or blah, blah company, or blah, blah, whatever has done something. Oh, this is horrendous. So someone retweets that. And it gets 6,000 tweets, 10,000 tweets, right? How many times have you done that? How many times have you seen a tweet or a headline and you have retweeted that? Be honest. You've done it. Never? You've never retweeted a headline or a tweet? Okay, good on you. A lot of people do, right? How many times have you read an article of that headline and then retweeted it? Okay. How many of you have read an article and then tried to look for multiple sources of information to see if that article is accurate and then retweet it? But that's a general thing that doesn't happen, right? And when it does happen, there's this other thing called confirmation bias, in that we try and tend to look for articles that align with what we want to believe in, with the position we're trying to take. And this is a big problem even for machines, right? So essentially what we are doing with social media, and it's not about Facebook letting us in or not without registering, is we are creating our own walled gardens. We're creating our own bubbles surrounded by people that more or less think alike. And we're not contrasting information enough. In fact, there's this very good paper that you should read that is talking about this exact thing. It's saying, maybe we need to encourage people to read both sides of the story. Remember that old saying that there's two sides to every story? Now it doesn't happen that often because it's so easy to just get information and share it. And given we've got so much information overload, we don't have time to analyze every bloody tweet, do we? We just share and forget. And that actually destroys people and it destroys lives. How many of you are familiar with Orwell? George Orwell. Right. Recently, past month, 1984 has come the bestseller on Amazon, right? Now, George Orwell said that, you know, we're going to have this thing of Big Brother and there's going to be control and censorship. Fortunately for us, he was completely mistaken. How many of you have heard of Huxley, Aldous Huxley, or read the book Brave New World? In it, even before George Orwell, in 1932, he talked about a society in which we have a controlled population, that we are so amused and entertained, sex left and right, drugs left and right, and we have artificial procreation. This is in 1932. Was he right? Apparently so. How many of you have read this book, Amusing Ourselves to Death? Now, this is one of the best books. This is by Neil Postman, and this came out during the boom of the TV. And it is about relevance lost in a sea of irrelevance. And let me just quote to you what he said. He said, what Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared were those that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared that those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Sounds familiar, right? Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Sounds familiar. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. This book is about the possibility that Huxley and not Orwell was right. Unfortunately for us, they were both right. Yeah? And this is even more relevant now with the internet. It's not even about media. It's not even about TV. The book basically is talking about how media, Telegram, all of this started to bombard us with information that didn't really concern us, didn't really impact our immediate life. And this has gone to much greater scale. And we're paying by sacrificing our time. Of course, we've got so much information. By creating an environment in which it's so easy to become trolls and foster and live in that. We have this concept of share and forget. Did any of you hear about, a couple of years ago, a lady that went to Africa, a white lady that went to Africa, and she was in Heathrow, and before she got on the plane, she tweeted, "I'm going to Africa, hope I don't catch AIDS, I'm just joking, I'm white." She tweeted this, got on an 8-hour flight, When she landed in Africa, South Africa, her life had been destroyed, right? She had been fired, she had been doxxed, people were harassing her, people were waiting to take pictures of her. She's destroyed. She's now in some remote village in America trying to get by having a job. And she was like the chief communication officer of some multinational company, right? Her life was completely destroyed. Now, she says that was a joke. It was a sarcastic joke. I don't know. She knows. I've heard sarcastic jokes like that, and that could well be a sarcastic joke. What did we do as a society? We judged, we executed, and we moved on. We moved on from that. How many of you remember that? Yeah, it's in the past, but a person's life was destroyed. What do? We just share and forget. Not looking at the truth, not looking at the facts, not looking at both sides of the story. And that's a person's life. Of course, this even has greater consequences given, recent events. We don't contrast information. And when we do, it's very biased in what we try and do. And there's so much information now that it's really becoming hard. And of course, not only information, we have applications that are free as well. Anything you want, there's an app for it. What do I eat? There's an app for that. I landed one day in Gatwick. I don't even use TripAdvisor. I landed in Gatwick. Immediately, my phone vibrated, and it said, hey, welcome to London. Do you want a good restaurant that I could recommend? I don't even use the app, but it's on my phone. It lighted up. What do we exercise? When do we exercise? We track that, right? When do we work? We track that. I got an application called Focus that shuts down everything. But there are services you can sign up to that will monitor your working patterns and tell you where you could improve and where you could not improve. Where do I go? We track that. And who else is going to be around there? All of us use these applications, or we use something just like Google. This is Google Now. On my phone, it is the most amazing software ever. It knows everything. It knows when my flight's going to be delayed, when my gate's going to be changed, where I'm checking in, where my car is parked. It is fantastic what my meetings are, who I'm talking to. It is beautiful. It's all there. In fact, recently I'd installed Google Trips, which is an application that you install. It says, do you want to hook up your Google account? I said, yes. In 1 millisecond, I had all my travel information back to 2003, right? Because it's all indexed, analyzed, ready for Google to serve you. Google Trips was just a UI on the database on the information they have of me. If you use Gmail, you see that, right? All of this is there, owned by corporations, and now with complete free access from the governments. And Google knows you. And now Google wants to know your family too, right? Okay, Google. And it's not just Google, Amazon Echo. Amazon knows you. Mattel is building an Alexa for kids. Think about this. A kid, a 5, a 6, a 7-year-old in their bedroom, the things they say or not say is all being analyzed and processed and served to us for our needs. Runkeeper has suddenly turned out that was secretly keeping track of everywhere you go. It wasn't telling you that. Google Voice Search records and keeps conversations people have around their phones, but you can delete the files if you want. In fact, a lot of these systems that are listening to OK Google are always listening, right? Because they need to listen to the OK Alexa or the OK Google or the OK Cortana. And all that information, we are hoping that it's all safe and all sound. Facebook is using smartphones to listen to what people say, professor suggests. Now, don't believe this, it might be fake news. Go contrast it. There's an application now in Russia, it's called Find Face. I tried it. Russia has their own version of Facebook, it's called Kontaktir, it's vk.com. And a startup in Russia created an application where you can just take a picture of someone, immediately tells you who that person is. I tried it, it works. If you have your picture on Kontaktir, it will say, oh, is it this person? Sometimes it finds one match, sometimes it finds 3 or 4 matches. But everyone I tried, it found matches. But hey, it's great to be able to tag people in photos, right? And guess who's interested in this technology? Guess. Google. Police seek Amazon Echo data in murder case. Think about this. Police want a warrant on Amazon data in a murder case because they believe Alexa might have listened to the murderer. There's a hotel chain in Vegas that wants to install Alexa in every room, completely destroying that thing of everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's gone. Now it's on Amazon too, right? Oh, I saw you were interested in, I'm not going to say what. Here, I'll show you some adverts for that. And now we have this beautiful thing called the Internet of Things. There's a smart tampon, right? And it does need to be stopped. LG threatens to put Wi-Fi in every appliance it introduces in 2017. That is actually a threat. And I'm not even talking about security aspects. There was a very good tweet by a friend of mine that said the S in IoT stands for security, right? There is no security. But I'm talking about you are next to your TV, you are next to your fridge, and everything all the time is now listening to you. George Orwell didn't imagine this in his wildest dreams. He thought the government is going to come and put cameras in your house. Why? You can just buy a TV, or a fridge, or a phone. And we know everything about you. And we're paying by sacrificing our privacy for convenience. It's as simple as that. Oh, I got nothing to hide, that's all good. By being the product and helping shape the product. And we're doing this hoping that our data will never be sold or hacked or used against us. Bruce Schneier said, surveillance is the business model of the internet. We build systems that spy on people in exchange for services. Corporations call it marketing. Now you go to the web, I buy a product even from Amazon and I keep getting advertising from Amazon. It's like, it's trolling me. Now, WhatsApp users, to receive adverts, when WhatsApp was bought by Facebook, they said, no, we're not going to, completely separate, going to keep it completely separate. A year later, oh yes, we're going to join the databases, we're going to sell you adverts. That's been stopped in some countries. I believe in Germany it's been stopped. And then, just coincidentally, the other day they found that WhatsApp vulnerability allows snooping on encrypted messages. Facebook, but they sell us ads, and they sell us, we buy ads at JetBrains as well. They say, oh, ads are fantastic. Ads are fantastic. How many of you buy ads? Yeah, they say to you, they give you these charts. And not only Facebook, all of these companies, they give you these charts, and they're like, okay, you invested $1,000, you generated $150,000. You're like, really? Yes. How? Well, kind of association, blah, 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 blah. So if you invest $5,000, you're going to get $1 million. You're like, that sounds good. Guess who generates these reports that tell us how efficient our advertising has been? The same people that sell us the advertising, right? And then recently it came out in the Wall Street Journal that Facebook had overestimated key video metric for 2 years. Oh yeah, we just said that your videos have been played more than they were actually played. It's okay though, we'll fix it, it was a bug. And then, of course, you say, okay, but it doesn't matter. I don't care if people sell me advertising. Big deal. Okay, so I have to click on the ad and say, I don't want to see adverts of diapers anymore. Big deal. I mean, I don't really care because I have nothing to hide, right? And I think the best way to phrase this is how Edward Snowden said it. He said, arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. Essentially, that is it. Right? Now in the US, they're going to start doing what they've been doing actually in Canada for many years. You can go through immigration and they can tell you to unlock your phone. And they can look at your phone. And don't think that this won't happen in the UK or in Europe. It will. It eventually will. There's a new law that's coming into Europe, which is called the GDPR, which is a General Data Protection Regulation, which is basically enforcing thousands of new requirements on us so that we stop profiling people and sending data to people and getting data from people. Implementation-wise, let's see what happens, because I'm not too optimistic. Then there was an article about NHS shares medical records of 1.6 million patients with Google as part of data sharing agreement. How many of you that live or might live, I asked my friends in the UK, I said, were you aware of this? When you signed up to the NHS, were you aware that there's a data sharing agreement between the NHS and Google? They weren't aware. Just like I'm not aware if there is one between my social security in Spain and Google or what have you. Now, it's all for good. It's all for good. Of course it is, until it's not. The US government, as I said, is starting to ask foreign travelers to disclose their social media accounts. And this is not something that's happened in recent couple of months. This started 6 months ago. If any of you have filled out an ESTA form, they actually ask for your social media accounts. Now it's optional. Tomorrow it won't be. What's your GitHub account? What's your GitHub? They actually, at least they've gone to the level of asking for GitHub. Like, awesome, someone's going to see how much good open source I write. It's like, if I use Node.js, is that going to be viewed badly? China plans to organize its society, relies on big data to rate everyone. Okay? They want to use big data to rate. Now, how many of you have seen Black Mirror? Yes. That's exactly what it was in one episode of Black Mirror Season 3. So in summary, what is the point of everything that I've been ranting on? We're screwed. Like, I tried to put a summary in here and I realized that there is no summary. We're screwed. And this is not an episode from Black Mirror. In fact, Charlie Brooker, someone, I couldn't find the tweet, but at some point, someone had tweeted and said, oh my God, today feels like an episode from Black Mirror. And Charlie Brooker, the guy behind it, responded and said, no, it was even too dark for me, right? So what is my point of this? Honestly, I don't know. I'm just raising concerns that I've been having for some time. But I wonder if we can actually strive to create sustainable models. Sustainable models that think about our privacy. Sustainable models that think about our well-being, both from an emotional aspect as well as financially. Because that's another thing. We're ignoring artificial intelligence. Every time you talk about artificial intelligence, people say, oh, don't worry about it. It's just another industrial revolution. And jobs will be shifted to something else. It's not. I don't believe it is. And there's many other people that don't. There are multiple studies going back. I was talking about this, I was saying to Jake recently that I was talking about this 4 years ago. There was a study by MIT finding that the rate of destruction of jobs is significantly higher to that of creation. And this was 4 years ago, right? And Industrial Revolution was creating jobs at the pace that it was destroying. This is not the case now. How many of you have heard of, it was called Foxtel or something, a company in the ones that fabricate Foxtron, Foxnet or something. The company that fabricates iPhones for Apple in China. A few years ago, it was in the news making rounds because people were committing suicide. They were working too many hours and then committing suicide. They addressed it by putting nets in the building so that if people would jump, they would fall in nets. You know how they've addressed it now? They've replaced 60,000 jobs with robots. 60,000 jobs in China. And that's just one example, right? And artificial intelligence is going to take over many of our jobs. In fact, there was a very good paper from IBM Bluemix that shows all of the different jobs that are being now replaced with artificial intelligence. Things that you wouldn't think about. Like, now it makes sense, but lawyers can be replaced by artificial intelligence. Doctors can be replaced by artificial intelligence. Many things can be replaced by artificial intelligence. So we have to actually start thinking seriously about sustainable models. But a bigger problem, of course, is not only jobs, but its influence. Now, this is a paper that you can read and you can contrast. How many of you have read this? I highly recommend you read it. It's called The Rise of Weaponized AI Propaganda Machine. True or not, it is completely viable in that it's talking about how the current political party, Republicans, won the elections by using artificial intelligence to sway people and influence them by recognizing what people like or dislike on Twitter and Facebook, and then pushing certain messages. And this was done by a company, so-called company in the US called Cambridge Analytica. Okay? Now, they're not sharing the evidence, but it is possible. It really is possible for this to happen. But the bigger problem here is that artificial intelligence can also be biased. And in fact, there's numerous papers showing this. This is an example of an application that was, by just face recognition, was saying that this person is a criminal, this person is not. And it was actually the reverse. Racial profiling, all of these things, at the end of the day, who is programming this? We as individuals also have biases. Right? And this is a real big concern. Now combine this, the day that we get facial recognition where any camera in any city can actually recognize you, which we already have the software for, it starts to become quite scary, especially when we as humans might not be in control anymore. So, okay, but you know, what is our role, and why do I try and give these talks here? Because I feel that we're not only consumers, we are creators, right? We have been playing and will continue to play a significant part in this. And us and those that are coming into this industry, we are part of the problem. And for far too long, I think that we've kind of looked the other way, including myself, and said, well, I can't do anything about it. This is much bigger than me, so, you know, I'm just trying to maintain a family. But I wonder, what am I going to maintain? Or what my kids are going to maintain eventually? Because if we all look the other way and say, this is not my issue, it's not going to scale well. So I'll finish off with a phrase from Jurassic Park, paraphrasing. It says, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they should, they didn't stop to think if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And I find too often that we make the same decision. We look at how can we technically do this without thinking of the consequences. And a lot of time it is not with ill intent. I would say 90% of the time it is not. If I want to create an application that is keeping track of what I eat, I do it with good purposes. But I don't think about how this can be exploited in bad ways. And I really believe that it's time that we start to think about these things, because I don't know what else to go. So, thank you. I hope that wasn't too depressing, but it's cool, huh?